Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. From 6:30 to 7, we're going to have a public forum on Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball's request to place lighting at the Shaker Lane baseball field, and their other requests for displaying advertising signage during the playing season. Then at 7, we'll start our regular meeting, and we'll kick off that meeting the way we normally do. So we're just going to start with our public forum. The idea here is to allow the public and the school committee to continue to gather information from LYBS on their requests for lighting at the Shaker Lane baseball field and signage at the Shaker Lane baseball field, as well as discuss the pros and cons and whether or not the school committee and the community support either or of these two requests. Dan Shuffrin is here, who's president of LYBS. And what I'd like to do is basically just open the podium to input from the community. And then after we get that, we'll have input and questions from the school committee. And then we'll have a discussion about how we may or may not want to proceed with any votes tonight as part of this meeting, or if we want to defer that to another meeting. Again, the idea is that Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball would like to put LED lighting on the primary baseball field, which is the one closest. There are 3 baseball fields at that facility. This lighting would only go on the one closest to the school, right near the parking lot, and then signage on that field for advertisers in an effort to allow LYBS to continue their fundraising to support youth baseball and softball. Dan went through the different programs that they've added over the course of the last several years, and the fact that that has helped result in increased enrollment in their programs and participation. But in order to keep moving forward, they feel like the lighting is important to give them flexibility in scheduling practices and games and extending the evenings. And then the signage to help do fundraising to help pay for the lights, but also to continue to support indoor baseball rentals during the off season, as well as equipment requests and different things that they do as part of their programming. So at this point, if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on these requests, I just ask you to come to the podium, state your name and address, and then let us know what your comments or questions are. Saying none, I will say that the school committee did receive around a dozen emails from people in support of these proposals, and I don't think we got any that were objecting to it, at least not that I saw. At this point, I'll open it up to the school committee members for additional questions or comments or thoughts.
As far as the lights go?
We can start with the lights, yeah, that's fine.
Okay. No concerns there.
Okay.
I think last time I had some questions and concerns about some of the advertisement, but I'd like to see,
Okay.
presentation.
All right. So let's focus on the lighting
Yep.
request for the moment. Darryl, any thoughts?
Yeah, no, I looked at the material from, I think this is just an update of the brief presentation you gave us last time there, and I think relative to the lighting, I don't have any concerns. I did talk with the PMBC that, the process about a possible process, we would bring it to them to formally execute the project for us, and they were supportive of that.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think we had some discussion about that at the first presentation that was made by LYBS. And, if the school committee does support this, that doesn't give LYBS carte blanche to start digging holes and constructing anything there. But what it does do is allow us to get out of the way and allow the town, whether it's the PMBC, the highway department, other, groups that or staffing that would be part of a project like this to get involved and go through their processes to make sure that it's done correctly, safely, and efficiently, and cost effectively as well. All right, we good on that then?
Yeah, I think the light one was
Okay.
was pretty
All right,
straightforward.
let's have a
for us.
discussion on the request for displaying advertising signage during the playing season. Jen?
The big question is just specifics to the look and permanence and those things.
Okay. All right, Dan, you want to come up and do you have anything you want to clarify on that, or give us some?
Sure. Dan Shuffrin, 156 Mill Road, and also president of OIBS. Yeah, so the signs that we've created, they're vinyl signs. They're standard size. We use, I think they're 3 feet by 6 feet signs, but they're all weather, right? So they stay up in the weather, and we roll them. Have been rolling them up after each game, and then displaying them before each game. All the signs that we have last multiple years because they're pretty well constructed. So it's not like they're weather beaten and tattered. If anything were to happen, we've replaced signs or gotten additional signs in the past. So we make sure when we get new sponsors, we get new signs anyway. So from a look and feel standpoint, there shouldn't be any issue with them staying up for the 8 to 10 weeks that we're talking about during the season. Now, if they're going to be up permanently all year round, I might have other concerns, but beyond that, for the springtime, it shouldn't be an issue.
Steve, could you bring up I don't know what number it is. It's the one that's got the little graphic, the picture.
Yep,
That one there. So I did not get a chance to drive over when it was light out to actually see.
That's why we know
there. So when you're talking about the signage in the outfield, I'm not familiar with where I see the line, but I don't know where the fence is and that you're actually referring to. So
Do you
could
mind
you?
if I
Yep.
from up there? So where we put the signs now, there's actually, this is the fencing that we use.
Oh, okay, the front fencing.
Front fencing.
Okay.
What we'd also like to do is there's actually a back fence here as well. This is predominantly where we put the signs now. If we had our choice, we'd be able to do both. But, by and large, most of the signs go here. Challenge, of course, is depending on the number of sponsors we have, we start running out of space.
Yep.
So this would be a little bit easier to put up and kind of maintain. This is the one where it's really difficult for line of sight for people who want to sit, because we don't have any
On the
seating
hill,
inside
yeah.
here. So you end up people having to sit in various places so they're not obstructed, their views aren't obstructed by the signs. But, that's less of a concern. We got to get the signs up. So, but by and large, it's here first, and then if any spill over, we would put them on the back fence.
So my concern comes around in terms of, I don't know, so I know that picture doesn't cover like where the playground is and the other parts there, but one of the pieces that, concerns me would be is how much of that advertising is exposed to the kids while they're out doing the normal school functions of, that we have there, and we had strongly heard in the past preference not to have the advertising, exposed to the children during the day, type of thing there. So I was trying to get an understanding of where we're talking about specifically, and where that is relative to the sight lines for the pieces there. So likewise, when you talked about the fence, which side of the fence does the advertising face?
Well, we have been putting it on the outside of the fence facing this way so people can see the signs, which is what we would still do in this case. With respect to the playground, so the playground's often in this area over here, and this doesn't actually show really the topography, but there is a pretty significant drop-off. So, you might have line of sight from the playground down the hill to where some of these are, but by and large, the kids are kind of off in this area and not really at the same level as these signs. So it's not, you know what I'm talking about. There's a
not
pretty
that visible.
significant drop-off. It's not really visible.
Sure.
And really, the way it would work is, to see it, you would have to migrate towards the baseball field edge of the playground. Now, some kids do, for whatever reason, and there's a garden over there. If you're getting closer to that, you're gonna see more of it. But as you're drifting away towards the play wall that they have and the actual playground equipment, which is up on the hill, no, you can't see the field. You can see some of the field because but the fence and stuff is down the base of the hill, so you can't see, you see over the top of that where they are.
The other thing that I would say is that the signage tends to be just the name of the business, right? So it's not like it's not like there's an advertisement for a sports drink or something where there's a picture. It's more of the name of a carpet supplier or Acton Toyota or something like that. So from from an exposure, they'd have to actually read the sign and interpret what it actually it is for them to have really any exposure to them. So it's not marketed for the kids,
Right.
right? It's really meant for, well, if it's really meant for anybody, it would be for the parents when they show up.
Yeah, and I think that's consistent with, I know it's consistent with the policy that we set
Yep.
out for the pieces there, but I want to be respectful of the input that we received.
Sure.
Relative to introducing advertising near the schools there since, for it. Let me see, so that fence, what you're saying is along that tree line is the other fence.
Yeah, we traditionally we haven't put anything up there, as far as I know, ever. I think one of the things that we'd be looking to do is, again, if the amount of signage that we have exceeds the capacity on that fence, to use that as spillover. It's a little harder to get out there and put signs up, because we'd probably want to put them up higher, where we can just kind of stand up and do these, but that would be used as a contingency more than anything else.
And then have you, I think we had discussed different options relative to the scoreboard. You had a couple of different options you were thinking about.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah, so
Something
we can
more.
certainly do, we can do one of probably three different things, right? So we can do a scoreboard that has more permanent signage that we leave up there, year-round, and the corresponding sponsorship that comes with that. We could look at removable signage, or have signage that we have just up for the season and then take it down. Or we could even go with the option of having a scoreboard without any signage whatsoever. The funding of that would be a little bit more challenging, but those are essentially the three different options that we can take.
And I guess I would just say is I'll just express my concern about permanent permanent aspects of it is if the, as we saw, company goes out of business and we still have the logo up,
Yeah.
or whatever we've agreed for the piece there. So I'd be
Yeah, I
more
mean,
towards something that we could.
I think if it's, and I believe that it is in this day and age, very technically feasible to have signage that you can leave up for the 8 to 10 weeks and then remove, whether it's you're sliding them in or tying them off or whatever it is.
So it's different, to your point. I think it's different than what we have now, right? So the scoreboard that exists over at Shaker Lane now, which is on top of our snack shack storage shed, has Very Fine still on there. But it was constructed such that the Very Fine signature is permanent, right? For these scoreboards, there are panels that go in. So even if it were the case where a company that sponsored us went out of business, you just take out the panel and you can put something.
I guess
else.
what I'm indicating, I'm more comfortable with that than,
Yeah.
I didn't have a say when the Very Fine one. I got a say now.
Yeah, I think if it's that, as simple as having a panel that can slide in and out, then it addresses our concerns in the long term and the short term.
Mhm.
And, I think it's just easier to just take them down when you're taking everything else down and just leave it as it is for the, dormant months.
Yeah, it's all modular and removable.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the scoreboard itself isn't
Yeah,
removable.
Right, no, that's fine.
Right.
And the school board is solar powered, correct?
Correct. That's what we would be doing. So it's, from a cost standpoint, there's no maintenance costs, and certainly from a carbon footprint, that you're not using up any electricity, there's no wiring requirements, et cetera.
And would it be standalone or, again, back up on top of the snack shack?
Pardon? Oh, no, this
Standalone.
would be standalone. So we would have it, I've marked it up there as my eyesight's going. I think it says. I think we've considered a couple different spots. Maybe it's that right center area, maybe it's a little bit close to center field or more closer to right field. Either way, it would be a standalone structure. We probably want to optimize it for line of sight as well as optimal lighting, so from the solar standpoint. So the company would come in and kind of help us choose the right location. In either case, it's far enough away and we'd have padding on the posts and everything, so it won't have any safety issues.
I'm good.
All right. I think at this point, Matt's not here. I think what I would like to do is, we can take it up under old business later in the meeting, because I'm expecting that, I just don't have them here at the moment. And we can decide if we want to go ahead, and if we think we've had enough information, and we're comfortable, we can entertain motions at that point and decide how we want to move forward, which I think I would rather do than kick it down the road to another meeting. I'm not going to be at the next meeting, so that would be a month out, and we'd be almost into what would be in February. So if we're good with that, let's do it that way.
Okay.
All right? Yeah. He missed it all. We'll circle back under old business. It makes me feel more comfortable from an agenda point of view. All right. Anything else on those two things? All right. Can I entertain a motion to suspend the public forum and then go into start the meeting at 7?
I'll make a motion to suspend the discussion and re-adjourn at 7 o'clock.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the regular part of the meeting. We had a public forum on Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball's request for lighting and displaying advertising signage. Now we're going to go into our regular business. Jen, could you lead us in the pledge of allegiance, please? We have a consent agenda, the minutes from January 9th, 2020, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We have two sections in the meeting for input from interested citizens, one now and one closer to the end of the meeting. Are there anybody from the public who would like to come and speak before the school committee? Seeing none, we'll go right into recognition. Our student representative report. Critty is here tonight.
Hello, everyone. So first off, I think we're going to have a very kind week next week. A lot of schools are doing kindness weeks and events like that. So at Shaker Lane, they're very excited for their annual Winterfest evening scheduled for next Friday, the 31st, from 5 to 8 o'clock. They want to thank the PTA, parents, and staff for all of their behind-the-scenes work and to make this a fun and eventful night for students. They hope to see many of you guys there, too. At Russell Street last week, they had a mindfulness day. Thanks to a grant written by third grade teachers Heather Love and Jessica Schofel, Russell Street was able to have a special guest speaker, Charity Bell, on site for that day to facilitate discussions with students. In addition, all students and staff made glitter jars to help with focus and concentration. Along with that, Russell Street had its Geography B finals yesterday, and special thanks to Starla Hazen and Heidi McGregor for planning and facilitating the B, and congratulations to the winner, 5th grader Caden Rowe. Next week, Russell Street will be participating in the Great Kindness Challenge, and they look forward to some random acts of kindness next week. At the middle school, tomorrow night is their kids' night out at 6 p.m., and then next Friday on the 31st is their movie night. And at the high school, tomorrow is the last day of midterms for students. We have them all this week. And then next week, the high school will participate in the Kindness Week with door decorating challenges, spirit days, and random acts of kindness. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Clenchey, other recognition?
Yes, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Gary Archer from Archer's Mobile. He's affiliated with ExxonMobil. Every year he donates, or ExxonMobil donates money to our STEM program at the high school level. They've been doing this for over 20 years. And, quite impressive that we have a community member that is so committed to helping move a STEM program forward in our high school. So special thanks to ExxonMobil and Gary Archer as well.
All right, thank you. Any other recognition?
Yeah, I'd like to publicly thank the Mighty Oak Fund. They stopped by and dropped off a check in the high school athletic office, $6,800 to help replace the sound system in the high school gym, which I guess is in pretty bad shape. So thank you to them, and we're already working on that proposal and issuing purchase orders.
We know why that system's blown out, kind of. Mike Lynn plays way too much classic rock and country music. The athletic director, I mean, all right, we've got a recognition. Under old business, before we take up the draft calendar, I would like to continue our discussion on the two requests that we had a public forum for, the Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball organization's request to place lighting at the Shaker Lane baseball field, and their request for changing the way they display advertising signage during the playing season. We had a presentation from them earlier this year, and then we had the public forum to allow for input from the community. We didn't get a lot here tonight, although we did get some clarification from them on questions that were raised by school committee members. We did receive emails in support of both requests from various community members. At this point, I'd like to see if the school committee is interested in entertaining any motions relative to these requests by Littleton Youth Baseball and Softball. But actually, before we do that, does the administration, do you guys have any input or concerns, or where's your comfort level with these requests?
far as I'm concerned, from my point of view, I'm excited about the project. I think they've been really thorough in planning and communicating with key stakeholders. The advertising, it appears to be very thoughtful and certainly is in line with our policy. The 12 emails that we received from parents in the community were very supportive of the entire venture, so I feel very comfortable.
Michelle, you're the principal at Shaker Lane, how do you feel?
Light it up.
All right. Any other-
With that, I would make a motion to, we'll do them as separate items, make a motion to approve the lighting plan requested by LBYS, and that project to be conducted through the PMBC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay.
Then on the advertising one, and I'll just toss it out for consideration, I'm in favor of supporting the advertising, but I'm wondering if we want to approve it on a one-year basis this year, so we solicit any feedback, and then next year consider whether we make that a permanent piece there. I don't know if you want to do an annual approval of the piece there, but I'd recommend at this point that we do a one-year approval
I
for
don't have
it.
a problem with that, especially too, I think that it'll be worthwhile because this isn't the only field that we're talking about doing some significant signage on. We're also contemplating doing it at Alumni Field as part of a aggressive fundraising effort. So I think it's worthwhile to let the community see it and see if we get any more feedback.
Right.
The other thing that I would like to ask is that in the motion that we specifically have verbiage in there that it's signage for the spring and fall baseball and softball seasons. Because what we've talked about is that there's a period of time, 8 to 10 weeks, depending on when they start and finish their season, which is sometimes weather-related and things like that, that's when we expect to let them have, be more aggressive about how they do the signage, leaving it up for that period of time, but that we fully expect it to come down after that. So as long as we have that in there, I think, they're clear on that, but if we put it in the motion, then it's all.
Is that baseball and softball?
It's baseball and softball.
Can I
Yes.
ask? The only one that might not come down might be the school board one, if that's,
Well, they talked about using panels, so the
Okay.
advertising would come out of it.
Okay.
The scoreboard itself would stay up
Okay.
permanently. Well, it's not permanently, nothing's permanent, but. All right.
All right, I'll make a motion to grant one-year approval for the Littleton Youth baseball advertising signage for the spring and fall seasons.
Second.
All right, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right, thank you. All right, next under old business, we have draft calendar. This is our second reading for the proposed calendar for the 2020-2021 school year, which is next September through June.
A minor change from the first edition that we brought forward last meeting. We backed up the K-5 parent conferences, and that was done for a couple of reasons. We felt that it would be better to have conferences earlier for parents and teachers to get together to talk about progress, and it also allowed us to have a better balance between the different trimesters. So we've consulted with staff, K-5 staff, had that conversation. The administration of the K-5 schools are on board. I feel it's a good change, so we're certainly ready to move forward with second reading and approval.
The other thing that I'd like to mention is that this particular calendar, this is one of the years where Labor Day starts very late in the calendar, and given that, we are proposing that we start school prior to Labor Day, so staff would return on September 1st. There would be school for students and staff on Wednesday, September 2nd, and Thursday, September 3rd, and then that would be followed by a 4-day weekend. So Friday, September 4th would be a day off. Monday, the 7th, Labor Day, is obviously a day off. and then school would again start in earnest on the 8th, which is definitely non-traditional, but we feel it's important that we do it relative to the late start of Labor Day. Gives us more flexibility in how we manage the calendar and trying to get out at a reasonable day and time in June. Any other questions or comments on the calendar? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the 2021 school calendar.
2020, 2021?
1920 to 21.
All right.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right. All right, presentations. Presentation on preschool.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. I'm Justine Muir, Director of Pupil Services. You'll be also hearing tonight from Michelle King, Shaker Lane Principal, and Dr. Linda Warren, who is the founder and president of Early Childhood Associates. So we're here this evening to present the inclusive preschool program at the Shaker Lane School and to review with you proposed programming which will allow us to continue to enhance the early childhood experiences for the children of Littleton. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that 3 of our preschool teachers, as well as our pre-K to grade 5 team chairperson, have joined us here tonight. So I thank them for that, and not only for their support tonight, but in all that they do every day. So thank you. Right. I'll now begin by reviewing inclusion in preschool. So inclusion in preschool or early childhood programs refers to including children with disabilities in early childhood programs together with their peers without disabilities, holding high expectations and intentionally promoting participation in all learning and social activities as facilitated by individual accommodations as necessary for students. And also using evidence-based services and supports to foster child development in the areas of cognition, language, communication, physical behavior, social emotional, as well as fostering friendships with peers and an overall sense of belonging. And this applies to students and young children with disabilities, from the mildest disabilities to those with more significant disabilities. Now that we've established what inclusion looks like in preschool, I'm going to explain how our program review has gone, and this started last year. So our preschool team was instrumental in collaborating around establishing our priorities for this school year. Part of that work included a mixture of staff discussions, review of local preschools, site visits at local preschools, and meetings with local preschools. During this time, we evaluated what other districts offer for programming, tuition, total hours of instruction per week, and frequency, meaning 3 days, 4 days, so on. And it's all compared with our current offerings. We were then fortunate enough to be able to work with and collaborate with Early Childhood Associates under the direction of Dr. Linda Warren. Early Childhood Associates is a nationally recognized research and evaluation firm with over 25 years' expertise in program research, evaluation, strategic planning for schools and communities, developing pre-K to 12 workforce, and program quality and consultation. As I mentioned, Dr. Warren, who's with us here tonight, is the founder and president of Early Childhood Associates. She is a leader in the fields of early childhood education, research, and policy development. Dr. Warren has had an impact nationally and in Massachusetts as a researcher and evaluator across educational settings. She won a 3-year contract to conduct observations of mentees across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, participating in groundbreaking peer-assisted coaching projects. Along with that, she has anchored the Steps to Success mentor coaching program for the National Office of Head Start, and she has evaluated coaching interventions across the country. Dr. Warren spearheads efforts to improve alignment in educational systems, and she has created and implemented birth to grade 3 alignment models in several cities and school districts. Dr. Warren will now join us to talk about the process that was conducted and her overall findings.
Thank you very much. Very glad to be here. Also want to reiterate the comments that were made about the teachers and Ally, who are all here tonight. I feel that we have put them, they have helped us enormously in gathering data, spending time completing surveys, letting us observe in their classrooms, as well as just talking with us. So probably most importantly, what I gained from that experience with them is their real strong commitment and passion about the work that they're doing, kind of real openness to hearing the results of an evaluation and trying to implement that. Okay, so as Justine mentioned, we really we used a multi-tiered approach in this evaluation process. We conducted, if you just go back to that last slide for 1 second. So you look at the process down below. We conducted observations in all of the classrooms, used a standard protocol to do that. Observed only one IEP meeting, but in addition to that, we were able to thoroughly analyze, take a deep dive into how children were assessed, looking at assessment reports, also looking at how IEPs were structured and getting a sense of how decisions were made about the kinds of services that, that children needed and eventually got, and then conducted focus groups and interviews. So that's been the process, and we are still looking at some of the data. So here, what I'm presenting tonight are some of the major kind of immediate kinds of recommendations based on our findings that could be implemented, keeping in mind that there may be some other opportunities to look at things a little bit differently as we move on. So, okay, you can go to the next slide. So I think what was really important is that what Justine showed on the first slide that was presented, where she talked about what inclusion and what inclusion is in preschool in Littleton. And if you notice the reference at the bottom of that slide, she referenced the 2015 joint policy statement by the U.S. Department of Education, as well as the U.S. Office of Head Start or Health and Human Services. That was really a groundbreaking thing for preschool inclusion, because we really never kind of had that statement in front of us that said, you know what, we have our two major agencies that are saying we support, and we have decades of research to support that an inclusive model works for all children, regardless of the disability. So that, coupled with all of the other information that keeps coming forward, including the research and other policy statements, we now have that statement. We have the statement from the National Association of Education for Young Children. We have it from the Office of Special Education, Division of Early Childhood. And most importantly, and recently, is our own state strategic plan on what early childhood special education services look like. So it's really kind of nice to see how that is aligned. Your statement is aligned with some of the most important national and state practices. And I think, looking at all those documents, that there are, what's striking to me is that we have now almost 3 decades of research on what outcomes look like for children that are in inclusive classrooms versus what outcomes look like for children that are in segregated classrooms. And without question, and I can certainly make this research available to you, but without question, we are seeing that children that are in inclusive settings experience higher cognitive outcomes and communication outcomes than children who are in a segregated setting. And these are young children I'm talking about. They experience higher and stronger, very robust socialization skills that are particularly relevant to children with the most severe disabilities. And most importantly, we're seeing that there's kind of this sense of well-being that we're really hoping that all children will have, when they leave preschool and enter kindergarten. So, we have a strong base for that, and that's why I think the work that is being done in Littleton in having totally an inclusive model of services, is very important. And, you are you are in this category of just about a third of the state that is really embracing this, and the pressure is on for other local entities to be able to do this. So in light of that, there are some findings that I just want to share with you today, because we're not saying that you need to, implement and design a totally, inclusion model. You already have that. But what we're saying is that the population is changing in Middleton. The children, that have disabilities, it's been predicted for the last 10 years to the medical profession, have different kinds of disabilities. We have different challenges. We've been testing different models that work with children with the most intense needs. And so with that in mind, our first evaluation finding has led us to believe that we need to really kind of think more about increasing inclusive practices in the classrooms. And by that I mean really moving toward a co-teaching model where we're having therapists working more directly in the classrooms, in the routines that children are, engaged in. And it's a little bit of a shift, but we've got evidence, behind co-teaching that really links to outcomes. And I think that it will solve some of the problems that we think the staff are facing now, one including just the time, the number of staff available to be able to do the work. So that's a direction that we are recommending. Now, in light of that, and so what that means is that we are going to have more therapists in the classroom. We are not recommending a separate classroom for children with more intense disabilities. However, we are recommending that and acknowledging that there are some children with very intense needs that need more extra support outside of the classroom. So outside of that classroom routine, whether it's 4 hours or 5 hours a day that they participate. So we are recommending having a period of time throughout the week where children with more intense needs come in and get some kind of targeted support for 1 or 2 hour blocks. So in addition to that, I think a really important thing here to understand is that by changing the inclusive practice model, by really restructuring the way that we're doing business, that it's going to really increase the time needed for staff to collaborate. We just, really have to think carefully about how do teachers and therapists work in the routines together to produce better outcomes for youngsters. How can they use the data that they're collecting on a routine basis for children to be able to have conversations about that? So we're talking about two things here. One, collaborative planning time within their schedules in order to, ensure that the work and energy that they are putting into supporting children and all children in inclusive settings is efficient and has the greatest impact. And also providing more opportunities for staff to engage in kid talk, to put student outcomes at the center of their conversations and back those conversations up with data. So it's kind of a data-driven kids talk. If you know what I mean, it's really more focused on, not talking about classroom issues, not talking about materials, really talking about kids in the center. We're also recommending, one thing that we heard loud and clear from the staff, and we also saw when we reviewed IEPs and assessment reports, is that there are some children that are in the 5-day program that really need that service, that intensity of that service. But if you're not in the 5-day program, which is I believe it's a 28-hour program, 25-hour program, guess what? You're in a 10-hour program. So it's either 10 or 25. And there are some children that need neither. They need something in the middle. So what we are recommending is that, we increase the number of hours available for some children, not all children, to participate more intensely in the program. And that will be talked about. I think, did you want me to talk? You're going to talk about that. Okay, you're going to talk about that, but let me just say one more thing if you don't. Yeah, so the other thing, very quickly, that I'll say is that we're really looking very carefully at the child assessment and IEP development process. We see a great opportunity here to restructure that process so that we are ensuring that the decisions we make about what children need and the kinds of placements they need, are based on a strong decision-making process that's systematic and includes all the staff in making those decisions. So along those lines, we are talking about following different protocols, rethinking the assessments, and making sure that when we are looking at children, we are just not looking at them through the eyes of an assessment tool and not just looking at them in their previous setting. We need to see what they are doing in a preschool classroom routine to help us better understand the kinds of supports that are needed. So we're building that in, and we are really support the notion of having a special education teacher involved at 3 different points in the assessment process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Warren, for that thorough review. A lot of what you'll see in the last section of the presentation will focus on the proposed programming. This is in gathering the information from our internal review of preschools and the ECA program review. This slide displays a general overview of the program options, and the slides that are forthcoming will explain them more in depth. So our proposed programming is to add an additional day for 2 preschool teachers. Currently, we have 2 preschool teachers that work 5 days a week and 2 preschool teachers that work 4 days a week. So that would be adding 1 day for each of those 2 preschool teachers, so that they're all working 5 days during the week. 2 4-day morning preschool programs that were in existence. It will change just a little bit in the coming slides. 2 4-day afternoon preschool programs. A 4-day full-day preschool program, which will be mixed age, and the 5-day full-day preschool program, which we currently have 2 of them right now, that will remain in existence next year, but then will turn into a 4-day full-day program the following year, 2021 to 2022. Thank you, Steve. So this is what we put together for you is a side-by-side comparison demonstrating the program changes to what currently exists in preschool to what we're proposing. So if you look at the top left, this year we have a 3-day morning preschool program, and that is for children who will be 3 years old that were 3 years old as of September 1st, 2019. The sessions this year are held on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays from 9 to 11:30. We are proposing next year to turn that into a 4-day morning preschool program, and this is to help offset the hours. You had heard Dr. Warren talk about, it actually was 7.5 hours compared to 25.5, so definitely a larger discrepancy between the 2 programs that we offered. So we are increasing the morning. The 4-day morning preschool program will be for children who are 3 years old as of September 1st this coming year, this September 2020. And those sessions will be held Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 to 11:30. I just wanted to go over the similarities and differences at the bottom. Before I do that, I just want to talk about the tuition rate. You'll see on the left, the current tuition is $2,500. And we are proposing $3,000 for this, and I'm going to break that down for everyone who wants the specific details. So to calculate the rate for this program, we refer to our already approved 4-day afternoon programs tuition, which was $275 a month. From that figure, we established the daily rate to be $17.19, and the figure of $17.19 was then multiplied by 13, as there are 13 early release days that this morning session will be in session as opposed to the afternoon that will lose those 13 days due to early release professional development days. It resulted in $233.47, which we added to the already established 4-day afternoon program, $27.50. and it resulted in a total of $2,973.27, which we rounded up to $3,000 just to make it a nice round number. So that is the 4-day morning program. On the next slide, this program remains the same. It's our 4-day afternoon program, including the tuition rates. There are no changes there. The next slide is the 4-day full-day program. So this is a new program. The 4-day full-day program will run Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 9 to 2:45. It's a multi-age classroom. Children will be 3 as of September 1st, 2020. For the tuition rate, we employed the same configuration of the 4-day morning program to come up with $5,500, basing it off the already approved 5-day full-day program. And the last program is one that we currently have in existence. The 5-day full-day program, the rates will stay the same for next year. The program will stay the same for next year. In the year after, actually just one difference at the bottom I just want to point out. We'll be accepting community peers into this program who will be 4 years old in 2021 next year because the program will phase out the following year and will revert to the program that was shown on the previous slide, which will be the 4-day full-day program that runs Monday through Thursday. So what do we do on that 5th day? Well, all the teachers will have this day with the exception of the 5-day full-day program that we're going to live out next year. And as Dr. Warren shared with you, the purpose of this is was based on a number of factors, staff feedback, and other areas of need throughout our program review. So the play group, we have envisioned the play group to run from about 9 to 11, and this is a play group is designed for children who need less intense services, related services only, maybe just OT or PT or speech, for example, and a limited number of community peers will be included in the play group. The targeted instruction group is the group that Dr. Warren referred to, and this would be a small number of children who needs more specifically designed, intense instruction for 2 hours on the 5th day. We also have an hour and 15 minutes we've allotted for Kid Talk, and that will be a time for teachers, classroom teachers and service providers to collaborate for teaching teams to meet and discuss children on a rotating basis. The format of Kid Talk sessions will be that we will discuss children's gains, strengths backed by data, and discuss challenges with identifiable goals. We also have up there or assessment. So part of excuse me, part of the process in welcoming children into our program, we need to complete an assessment on them, and this will allow time for all of the staff members eventually this coming year. It would just be 4 to have that time to look at a student, evaluate, and they're working together, whereas this year it's been kind of piecemeal and we've used other staff. We're going to use our preschool team, which is appropriate to provide those assessments on the days that we need them. And the last section of that day is it's almost about 2 hours, where teachers have collaborative co-teaching and embedded classroom-based therapy planning, and this will focus on inclusion and inclusive practices that incorporate teachers and service providers. Excuse me. And this slide this is just a clean representation, where the other one was embedded in the side-by-side comparisons. This is just a clean representation of the tuition rates that were discussed in those prior slides. So the 4-day morning program, this is adding an additional day to what was a 3-day morning program. We're increasing the tuition to $3,000. The 4-day afternoon program remains the same. The 4 full-day preschool program will be new and at $5,500, and the 5-day full-day program will remain in existence next year for the same tuition rate. So finally, as Justine mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we want to thank our preschool teaching staff for being here tonight. Also our service providers, our OTs, PTs, and speech and language pathologists. Our team chairperson, Dr. Linda Warren, and her team, Kate Miskus and Linda Sullivan. I hope I got everyone. There are a lot of peeps working on this with us this year. But we want to thank everyone for all of their hard work.
There are just a few things, excuse me, I'd like to add. Steve's going to put a slide up on, in regard to current enrollment in preschool, so you have an idea of the number of students that we do have in each group. Gives you an idea. It's broken down into community peers as well as students on IEPs. You can see that, and it changes from year to year. What we're trying to do is try to keep the community peers and students on IEPs as we don't want an excessive number of community peers where it's hindering our ability to service students on IEPs. At the same time, we want to meet the needs of our community, so it's a balance act every year. So it does fluctuate a bit from every year, but it gives you an idea of what our capacity is in our preschool program at Littleton. The proposal that has been brought forward this evening requires an increase in 0.2 FTE for 2 teachers. That works out to approximately $35,000. We've incorporated that into our proposed budget for FY21. And that will be something that needs to be absorbed by the appropriated budget. Time for questions.
Mm-hmm.
Not right now. Let's see if I can help us out.
I'll queue up something.
Yeah, okay.
Do 'em up.
So one is just, I'm fully on board on the program. I think it's an excellent presentation on what you're trying to accomplish in this. So most of this is just on logistics of the pieces here. So you mentioned on the 5-day that you're going to discontinue it. Why wait a year? Why not just discontinue it next year and just go with the 4-day program that you're planning on moving towards in the second year?
Well, we had some discussion about that. I mean, I'm going to be transparent as possible. We had some discussions about that up until yesterday afternoon when the presentation got to you in the morning. And I mean, that's really what it came down to. We could move that way. I think we would support that movement, the teachers.
I mean, we do have, IEPs are written currently for the 5-day program, so that would be some major service changes, and it always runs the risk of a family not accepting that. We are bound to state put regulations, which would be for a 5-day program. That's one aspect. We also have community peers who are in the 5-day program who are currently 3 years old, so they will be 4 years old next year and are planning to stay in that particular program. I believe there's 3 of those.
Yes.
So the issue is
So that would be
conceivably
shared.
supporting the kids that are on IEPs that are currently in the 5-day program, and we would expect not to offer that 5-day support for any new students, and we just got to get these existing students through the program if that's the route they take.
And then when those meetings come up, we can reconfigure those IEPs.
So it's conceivable that you could offer the 4-day, and if they took it, then we could move in that direction. If they chose not to, then we would be constrained and not be able to. Am I hearing that correctly?
That's a simple version.
I'm a simple
No,
A little more to it than that, but
Yeah, no, I
that's
just
the
wanted
idea.
to understand
Yeah.
why, with the, because it sounds like it's gonna be extra complicated for 1 year, because of the way you're planning on moving the Friday, so only some of the students will be able to do the new revised Friday.
So-
I'm just trying to understand the
So can
logistics
I
of.
clarify that? Because
Of
we
that.
did have that discussion internally with our preschool team, and there may be some students that are in the 5-day, full-day program that will exist next year that will be moved into that targeted instruction group. I don't know if that's the question you were asking, but we want to make sure that that's just a handful of students that need more intense services, and they wouldn't be not included because they're in that 5-day program. If that's what they need, we'll pull them into those 2 hours, and then they would go back into the 5-day on that day.
I think I understand, because the existing commitments on the existing IEPs is what's really driving it that way.
And the other thing, the current 5-day program, every Wednesday, that program dismisses the students go at 11:30. So 11:30. So that afternoon, for the next year, the teacher and service providers who are working in that classroom will have the time for, similar kid talk and similar common planning, collaboration session. It's not on the same day that the rest of the team will, but it's the equivalent essentially for next year. But
And then I think that you put up the piece here. So I guess in terms of, good to see this, understand the split of the students. What's our sort of demand from the community on the, like, what do you call them, community peers piece of that? Is that fully subscribed, oversubscribed?
We typically have a wait list. That, again, all depends on the number of students with disabilities that come into our program, because we build the program around them, trying to keep the ratios with what is suggested and recommended from the state. So we can allot so many students in based on the number of students with disabilities. But we have maintained a wait list this year, and we have used it. And parents have welcomed in. Just a couple weeks ago, we had a few community peers join us.
Then the other one is more of a, I guess, a sort of a, I don't figure it's a delicate budget question relative to this, and I don't want to, probably going to end up saying it wrong. So for the students on IEPs, we're required to provide the service there. So there's a change in the programming to match this that we're required to support out of our budget versus the community peers that we should not be pushing that into our appropriated budget. And I guess which level of budget analysis has been done to, so this point, this 35K that you mentioned here, I guess has the analysis, I know that we're moving this along here,
Right.
but I guess I'd just be a little concerned that if we're pushing with the program changes that are not required for the IEP students, that we're be sensitive about what we just, if we pushing monies into the appropriated budget.
The increase in the .2 FTE is specific to offering those additional services. So we are still targeting special ed services for students. So the idea of increasing staff wasn't just to increase time for the general population. It was to increase time for students who needed those extra services, and offer those services in a setting that still allowed us to provide an inclusive environment as much as we can. So having that day for those targeted services allows us to keep all children together, which is a philosophical premise of preschool programs.
Yeah. I'm just sensitive to the public being concerned that that we're subsidizing the preschool program for the community peers. I think that's a sensitive issue that I'd just like to make sure that we have the budget analysis that supports,
Right.
Yeah, the tuition revenue that we collect for those community peers is less than 50% of the total program cost.
And likewise, we're not looking for the community peers to subsidize
Correct.
those required
Right.
services. I just want to make sure that we've
Right.
done the budget analysis and that we've got the supporting information there so that
Yep.
the school committee challenged on that, we're pretty solid on the fund.
I think your preliminary analysis would support that we would continue on with the current balance that we have.
Correct.
So.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm good. Thank you.
And part of that is the assumption that the additional staffing, the 2.2 increase that we've included in the budget request holds and is approved to support that as well. Yep.
Thank you.
I think I agree with, I think it's anytime we can include, give them more options and get the community members, working with students with disabilities, that's good, so just gotta work out the details.
I have a couple questions. So, looking at the varying types of number of days and length of days and things like that, how do we compare in terms to other similar towns in terms of the delivery of preschool services? Are we more ambitious, more creative, pretty standard, adhering to the standard implementation of preschool?
Let me grab that. So You were prepared for that answer.
Oh, I'm glad I got you there.
That's not Jeopardy. You're prepared for that question.
We're ready for anything you guys want to throw at us.
I can pull up that spreadsheet if you want to see it, Justine.
Sure.
I can, give me a second, I'll find it.
We can start speaking.
Okay. So out of 17, this side that Steve's gonna put, out of 17 districts that we compared our programs to, only, so I'll quit counting. So there were 3 that had a 3-day morning, essentially, program like we had and are now recommending to 5, so 7.5 total hours. The rest mostly ranged in time from it varies, but 9 to about 14 hours. And then there were some in the 20s. There we go. So my color coding, yes. So we're at the top, and then what I've colored in purple there is anything that really ranges in the 20s, hours, time per week. So then the blue is comparable to our 4-day, and the orange is comparable to our 3-day. There's 17 total districts listed here.
I'll scroll slowly, but if you want me to stop and so you can read something, let me know.
So we feel like we're right where we need to be relative to servicing, and we're, it sounds like, it appears to me that we're working hard to.
With the new proposal.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, all right. And then, I mean, I think it's in there, I can sort of see it, but how do our tuition rates for the peer groups compare to other towns? Are we right where we need to? I can't see it, you have to tell me.
We're actually less than other towns.
We're lower.
Yeah.
Okay,
In some
In all
cases
categories.
significantly.
all right.
For several years, I think. I don't believe there's been a tuition increase. What did you do, 2012?
Yeah.
2012 is the
We
same
haven't had a
tuition
tuition
as
increase in
2011, actually.
as long as I've been here, and I've been here almost 13 years, so.
Yes, we have.
In this, we have?
You and I have been here for 13 years.
Oh, yeah.
We are substantially less than Brookline.
So you can see, so we offer more hours for less money than other communities offer.
Okay. That's the answer I
It's a
was
good
looking
deal.
for. All right.
It
I have
is,
any
yeah.
other questions or
I-
comments? No, good.
If I'm not reading this right, tell me, is there going to be an extra classroom just next year needed? Or is it,
No,
it just
so
switches over,
2,
okay?
yeah,
I was like trying to look at it, sorry, my brain is
Yeah.
not here this week.
2 mornings, 2 afternoons, 1 4-day full day, 1 5-day next year.
Okay,
And
then
that's
these-
based on the matrition of our students that are moving up.
Yeah,
So we have a lot of students in one of our 5-day, full-day programs. Almost the entire group is moving up.
okay.
So that's why we're able to offer that
Okay.
5-day one with only just 3 community pairs back. Any questions?
Do you want a motion from us, or?
Well, I mean, part of it is programmatic, but, we're playing with money figures. We really didn't increase the daily rate, but we do have a tuition increase on the 4-day morning program because of the increase in hours. So it wouldn't, I
Yeah,
think the
that's
support would be
appropriate.
great.
Okay. So let's tailor the motion specifically to the tuition increase. The overall programming is your purview.
Let's see, make a motion to support the proposed tuition and rates as itemized on during the presentation, rather than, unless you want me to read all.
No.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. All right.
Thank you.
From a school committee perspective, I would like to thank the staff, too, for taking a look at a good program and making it better. That's always the direction we want to be moving in. It's doing what we do well even better. You guys are the drivers of that. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the positive impact on the children in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next in presentation, we have a financial update.
Yep, so, let me try to pull it up here if I can find it. There's a report in your packet. This is a year-to-date, this is through December. We didn't have quite January numbers, and we're still in January, so this is year-to-date through December. Again, there's no concerns here, no worries, we're on target. We don't see any large anticipated expenses. We will incur a little bit of cost for the incident at Shaker Lane, but most of that would be covered by insurance, so we don't see any issues there as well. So glad to answer questions or come back with additional data if you guys want.
Questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Good, thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, we are at the second section of the meeting for input from interested citizens. Are there any interested citizens who would like to come before the school committee? Seeing none, we'll go into subcommittee reports, EMBC.
No, nothing of significance.
Budget subcommittee, the only update is that we have our meeting with the finance committee and the board of selectmen next Saturday. We'll be prepared for that, basically just the same presentation that we've done on our initial budget request, maybe some minor tweaks. So we'll be ready for that, and then at our next meeting, we'll get an update on that. Policy
The
sub-
governor
no,
did
sorry.
release his budget.
Has it?
The governor's budget was released yesterday,
Okay.
so people might want to go look at that. It shows a slight increase in Chapter 70 money at this point in time.
For Littleton
For
specifically?
Littleton, whether it holds or not, or whether the House changes it, to be seen, but that was just the governor's preliminary proposal.
Okay. Yeah, good to know.
And we will be dealing with the Student Opportunity Act that some of you have heard about. I've mentioned it a couple of times. We're still waiting for further details. I was at a meeting today, and it was kind of a teaser that things will come out next week. So they just kind of talked to us about it, and, but didn't give us too many details. All districts will be required to develop a strategic plan as to how that money will be used. The money is targeted for at-risk groups. So this isn't money that can be dispersed throughout the entire budget. It's targeted money to take care of concerns that districts have with various subgroups. For districts that are receiving minimal amounts of money, such as our district, the application is streamlined, it's 2 pages.
Good.
For districts
That
that
was gonna be my
are
question.
receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars, they have a 7-page application.
Okay. Policy subcommittee?
Welcome to policies. No candy tonight, sorry.
Looking after our well.
Yeah, so, yeah, oh, good, thanks, Steve, for bringing that up. What I have here is, I've met with Kelly, we've gone through A, C, D, F, and L for this packet here. Most of them are current with the MASC guidance at this point. The one change is in ADC, use of tobacco products on school properties. MASC has updated their policy to include vaping and other pieces there, so we're just adopting the standard language now instead of our own custom language. That, again, I will iterate, we were several years ahead of the state and other communities in adopting there. What I have highlighted here in yellow, mainly in A, there's a couple of policies, so I make sure I get the right ones here. Let's see here. A couple of them reviewed with the superintendent to make sure that we're up to date on, and I think they're not actually brought forward in the packet today because they need to just go back to the staff to make sure that all of the references are current with not only with regulation but our current practice here. We're going to refer the wellness policy down to the wellness committee to solicit their inputs. We've done that in the past, and it's been well received by the wellness committee there. And there's one, where did it go? It's, I thought it was AD. our education philosophy policy. I didn't bring that forward. I have that with the superintendent for us to review sort of the philosophy that we've adopted, make sure that it's current with our current vision. I think the first reading that we took of it informally looked like it's still current, but we want to just take a little bit more time to review that before bringing that forward there. And then if you scroll down further, in order for me to avoid the budget meeting, I'm going to be bringing another batch for first reading next meeting, so that the second reading will be the week before the budget meeting there, and then we'll probably have a little gap on it. I plan on bringing forward, if you keep going down, you'll be seeing, here we go, Olive J. There is relative number of updates within those. I'll be bouncing those through to Kelly for his review also. Most of them are just updating them to current MASC language. Scrolling down a little further, you'll also get K in the next packet, and I'll try to make sure that we include this cut out of the spreadsheet in there, and you'll get L also for it. That will get us a ways. I'll probably take a little break when we get the budget hit things there, and I'll try to knock off another couple of sections before the end of the year here.
Okay.
For it. So tonight, I'd like a motion, I have it itemized there, first for the review, modified policy on ADC, and then the first reading of reviewed is the other batch vote there. If there's any questions, feel free to ask Kelly. Ask me. Thanks, Jerry.
Well, so we're going to take two motions here, so let's take the first one. Before we take the motion, is there any discussion on ADC, use of tobacco products on school property? Then I will entertain a motion.
I'll do my own motion. Motion to accept for first reading the following modified policy, policy ADC.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. You can, in the second motion, you can say as listed on the agenda.
Okay. Oh, I like reading them all off. Make a motion to accept for first reading the following reviewed policies as current, as listed in the agenda packet.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Any other business? I would like to ask that we adjourn into executive session for a short period to talk about negotiations.
Make a motion to move an executive session for purpose of contract negotiation discussions with no intent to return to open session.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. This is a roll call vote. Jen?
Aye.
Darryl?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
I say aye as well. All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, LCTV.